Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another awesome, fantastic, marvelous episode of Sunday Night Live. Welcome. It is February 23rd. Well, for you guys in the States, it's February 23rd. For me here in Scotland, it is just clicked over to the 24th. So it is officially a Monday morning here, and we all know what Bob Geldof said about Mondays. So anyway, welcome. Hope everybody has had a great week. I have had a busy week. Crazy busy, and actually busier than normal. I'll tell you that. Busier than normal. And lots of interesting and exciting things happening here. Most of which I can't actually talk about. At least not yet, anyway. You're going to have to hold your horses on that one, but just, kind of just to tease you a little bit and let you know that there is something really exciting happening in probably the next week or two. So hopefully very soon, very soon, I will be able to spill the beans and let you all know about it. So I'm very, very excited, to say the very least. So that is extremely cool. Jonny Guy is on his vacation. I hope everybody got the chance to see his little video that he did, which was very cool. I'm amazed he actually got some internet to be able to do that. So I am just hoping that he resists the temptation to do a show. Because the guy has earned his rest. For sure. Earned his rest. So I'm hoping that he does the sensible thing and does that and actually takes a proper vacation. So, I'm going to go and take a wee look. I'm actually looking not at the chat. I'm looking at Studio One. And really, I should be over looking at the chat. Oh, okay. Getting a restricted error and cannot view on my TV. Oh, okay. That's interesting. I don't think we've had that before. Sorry about that, Ken. He says, now it's working. I can't get into the show until it actually goes live. Can't get into JG at all on the TV. Well, that's it. That's strange. I don't know why that might be. No, I have no idea what that's all about. That may be a YouTube thing. It may be the YouTube application on your smart TV maybe needs updated, something like that. I don't know. It's a thought. I don't know. I do not know enough. Mika Han is here. He's just walked in and is waving. I shall wave back. Let's go see. Michael says Back to the Future. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, here in the UK we invented that concept. Greenwich Mean Time and all that. Greenwich being, right slap down the middle of southeast London. At 0 degrees parallel, which is very interesting. To say the least, all of that stuff is really, really interesting. But yeah, pretty much London appears to be the center of the world, and Edinburgh is as well, because actually that 0 degrees parallel splits Edinburgh right in two as well. So there you go. Who knew? Okay, who is the first in the door? First in the door is Thomas, all the way over there in the Philippines. He says, good morning. Good morning to you, my friend. Ken Moss and Thomas were having a wee chat to start with, and then Lollipop Gill came in saying hello to Thomas and Ken. Good to be here. Hope all are having a fine weekend. Yes, absolutely. It is good to be here. You know what? I really look forward to doing this show every weekend. It's what I think about on Saturdays. It's great. I think about doing the show on Saturdays. I think about ideas for the show on Saturdays. And then sometimes I get to plan something for the show and sometimes I don't. But some of that is my fault and some of that is just the circumstance of life at the weekend. So I'm particularly at the moment because my kids are kind of quite unsettled at the moment, as I've talked about the last couple of weeks. My kids' school burnt down, or at least a section of their school burnt down a couple of weeks ago. And so the entire population of my kids' school has been decanted to 4 other schools. Fortunately, my son and my daughter are at the same school. Not all the families have had that luxury. Some siblings have been separated and are at different schools, and it will be like that for the next 90 days, probably, which is not going to be a lot of fun for the kids. It's quite unsettling. But hopefully after the Easter vacation, they will be back on their original school grounds in temporary classrooms. So that's the plan anyway. So I guess until then, it's going to be a little bit unsettled, and it's meant my kids have kind of like had trouble sleeping and stuff like that. So night times have gone back to being exhausting again, like they were when they were very small. So yeah, entertaining times for everybody. Who else is here? David SJ is here. Second Tony, of course, is here. Michael Johnson is here. Loens, good to see you. Glad you're here. Mika, of course. He says, certainly Jonny Guiber's earned plenty, but who's paying him? Not Presonus. Well, yeah, you have a point of sorts. Let's see. Carrying on. Mika says, I have Roku smart TVs. I can stream any and all kind of shows on YouTube. Well, that's very cool. I'm not quite sure what Ken has, and maybe that's an issue. Ken says Silverstein just premiered Back to the Future the Musical in Manchester. Back to the Future the Musical. See, I'm not entirely sure that I like the idea of Back to the Future the Musical. It's a fun movie. I'm not quite sure that it would translate necessarily very well to being on the big stage, the on the theater stage. Not entirely sure. And I'm also not entirely sure that we should be making musicals out of everything. To be honest. But that's just Alan Silvestri, of course. Yeah, well, he wrote the original music for that movie. So it kind of makes sense, I guess. But still, yeah, I just don't think we should be making musicals out of everything. Otherwise, we will end up with a situation where we have whoever the next US president is, the musical, or whoever the next British Prime Minister is, the musical. You know, God forbid we end up with, I don't know, Boris Johnson, the movie. That would be hideous. So, that'd be like, Dante's Vision, as far as I'm concerned. But yes, stuff like that. Mika says, I think everyone here might be interested in this information video from Christian Henson. Search for Pro Tools versus Logic Pro X for media composition. It explains why Pro Tools is used so widely. Yeah, well, Pro Tools pretty much is good for that kind of thing. Mind you, I would also say that Cubase as well. I know a number of film composers that use Cubase exclusively. Like Hans Zimmer, for example. He is just one. Multiple award-winning film composers. John Williams, I believe, also uses Cubase. Although a lot of the time he handwrites his scores. Still, to this day, he still does it. But he also, I think he used Finale as well. But obviously he won't use Finale anymore because Finale has had its finale. Thanks to Apple's Catalina. But we won't go there. So, yes, there you go. Nuendo. Yes, I am a former Cubase and Nuendo user. Interestingly enough, a number of the software geniuses over in Hamburg for PreSonus Software are also former Nuendo and Cubase guys, developing those two platforms, which is very interesting. I have talked to a number of the guys over there and reminisced of, over the early days of Cubase and the early days of Nuendo when Nuendo first launched and all of that. And, developing that and all sorts of stuff. It was really, really, really interesting, kind of them talking about it from a development point of view and me going, yes, and enthusing from a user's point of view. And it's just really interesting that now I know these guys who were behind the scenes back then. It's just weird for me personally. Henson mentions the popularity of Cubase for film composers. Yeah, cool. Budbox Guitars is here. He says they should televise the brainstorming meetings where they come up with ideas for musicals. They're probably all off their heads on one thing or another. I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised. And I think to some degree, there's probably some people that just sit there and they just think up ways to make large sums of money. And one of the ways you can do that is to write a musical. So, I mean, heck, you know, British sitcoms are now becoming musicals. Like, you have The Young Ones, the musical. And it's just like, one day I will wake up one morning and it will be Breakfast TV News, the musical. Well, that'll be exciting, won't it? Maybe I'm just a cynic. I don't know. So we have 21 people here and the reverse number for likes, which is interesting if you're into numbers. So, yeah. All right, so now that we've got through all of that kind of preamble, I should get to the main meat and veg of the show tonight. Somebody sent me a question regarding the project page that I thought I would show you guys. Now, some of you guys will be very, very familiar with this, and you'll go, oh, yes, I know that. And that's fine. You can just sit back and kick off your slippers, go make a cup of coffee, and relax. The rest of us who may not know about this is very, very cool. And it's very, very useful if you have been working with somebody on an audiobook. Or you've just mixed a show, like a gig, a live show. And, hey, Francis is here. Francis Stino, welcome. He says, first time ever aboard your show. Well, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Mika says, don't complain, musicals keep people employed. Well, that's very true. A lot of my friends actually work in the pit bands for a whole bunch of musicals. And they make a good salary. If they're working regularly and they're in the same pits for the same kind of shows, maybe 2 or 3 shows that they circulate around, you can make a good regular living. Songwriting Wednesday's musical, that is very good. Certainly, perhaps that is a subject that we should cover. Jonny and I should cover for Songwriting Simplified, is musicals. Mostly because I am not a fan of musicals. And I've been in a couple of musicals. I've been in pit bands for musicals. I've been in MD for one. And I have been on the stage acting and singing for a couple of musicals. So I've been, I've been there and done that and still don't like it. It's not that I'm just kind of, sitting at the back going, musicals are crap. I'm not that kind of guy. If I like something, then, I like it because I've tried it. And likewise, if I don't like something, it's because I've tried it and didn't like it. It's like Reaper Door. Tried it, hated it. Did actually try it properly, though. And that's, it's just the way I work. If I'm going to try something, I'm going to try it with gusto and enthusiasm. And yes, I did try Reaper enthusiastically and got very quickly unenthused. But there you go. That's that. So, project page is very, very cool for a whole bunch of things. Like if you're wanting to master an album, an EP, or even if you're using it the way Joe Gildy uses it. He uses it very differently to the way I use it. And actually, the way he uses it is pretty cool. He's done a video for the Personas channel about that just recently, and it is very, very cool. You should go watch it because it's very useful the way he works with the project page. And I'm kind of going, I had not thought of that. So it is something that I am actually going to adopt. And it is actually relatively regularly that Joe does something in a video and I go, I kind of like that. And I end up adopting it, and it's great. Joe is a good friend of mine. He and I got on very, very well. He's hilarious. He's very, very entertaining. He's great fun. So, right, let's get into this before I bore everyone to death with just waffling. So, I need to be over here, and you need to be over there too. I need to get better at pressing these buttons. All right, so we are over in Studio One. I need to get something whereby I can just switch the scenes much quicker. I think Jonny has like one of those. I think he has like a controller board that he just presses the button and it changes scenes. I think he also uses the automatic scene switcher as well. I haven't worked out how to set that up yet, but it is something I'm going to look into because obviously doing this is just a bit of a pain in the bottom. Okay, so we are looking at the song page and not the project page, but don't be alarmed. We will go over to the project page right now. All right, so we are on the project page. I'm not going to play the audio of this because I can't. I'm not allowed to because it's an audiobook. But let's imagine a few different scenarios with this particular piece that is like 38 minutes or so in length. Let's imagine that this is our final mix of our of our 45-minute set, let's say, from a gig. Like maybe it's one of my 45-minute lunchtime jazz gigs, which I have done. I don't do anymore, but I certainly did. I did for a lot of years. Every Thursday lunchtime, I was down at a jazz club in Edinburgh with my trio, and we played two 45-minute lunch sets. So let's imagine this is set number one of a Thursday lunchtime set. And I've decided that I want to make this into a CD so that I can pass this around to other venues to see if they will take my trio on to do the same kind of thing. So maybe I decide, hey, I'm only working a Thursday, but I would like to work on a Monday. And maybe I'd like to work on a Friday as well. Do a Friday lunchtime. Friday lunchtimes are popular. So, why not? And I decide I want to make this into a CD, but I want to be able to chop this up so that I have the individual tracks. And I can name them appropriately and all of that. And have all the CD track numbers and everything else. And maybe I might even do some sneaky little crossfades between one and the other. Because maybe I don't want to do like full-length songs. I just want to do little 30, 40-second snippets of each one of the songs, for example. So, what I'm going to show you is very, very cool. I don't have this mapped to key modifiers, but I should. And I would recommend if you are doing this regularly, maybe with audiobooks, and you are chopping audiobooks up into chapters, I would suggest that you map this to a key modifier or a couple of key modifiers so that you can do this super fast. I mean, it's pretty fast doing it with the mouse, but it would be a lot faster if you're doing it with key modifiers or macros, except you don't have macros in the project page. So you would have to do it with key modifiers. All right, so we want to chop this up into constituent parts. So let's say the first song ends more or less around the 5-minute mark. So I put my mouse here, not in the timeline, but here on this blue bar here. And then I right click. Hang on a minute. I need to select the event. What's going on here? Because those should not be grayed out. Okay, I'm having a Jonny Guide moment. Hang on a second. What's going on here? Why are these grayed out? These weren't grayed out just a minute ago. I imported this in and actually did this a minute ago. What the blazes is going on here? Ah, there we go. I had the mouse in the wrong flipping place, didn't I? There we go. All right, so when you've got your mouse in the right place and you right click, these are your options. Now, you're automatically going to say, hey, split event at cursor. But if you do that, all that happens is you split the event into 2 bits. It doesn't actually give you the second track. So you don't want to do that. So let us undo that. what you want to do is you want to go to split, track, and event at cursor. So we want to do both. Now, as you can see, it's not mapped to any modifiers. So I definitely suggest pick a couple of keys to do this with, or even better, one key that you can do this with. Because this would be very, very cool. So we hit that, and now look what's happened. We now have, obviously it's going to be the same title, and you're going to have to go through and retitle these. But let's say then the next song finishes, I'm just going to pick here. So we right click again, and we go split track and event. Oh, why did that not work? Try that again. Come on. Need to move the cursor. That's what's not happening, is I'm not moving the cursor. There we go. Split. Okay, and then again, move the cursor. Make sure you don't click in the timeline, because the wrong things come up when you click in the timeline. You've got to click on this bar here. And then let's say that this next one's a little bit longer, so we put the cursor there. And then we do that one, and then this one over here. Cursor. And so on and so forth. And you can split that as many times as you want. So I've now split this into 8 songs. Now, being that this is a jazz gig, you know what? 35, 36-minute set, you may actually find that it is 8 songs that you get to do. Sometimes it might even be 3. In fact, I've played gigs where we've only actually played 1 tune for the entire 35-minute set. And it never got boring. And everybody was engaged all the way through. So that's how you do that. And as you can see, you end up with the track numbers. Tracks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, what happened to track 2? Because I can see track 1, but not track 2. That's interesting. That is interesting. Okay, and now I've made that track 9. I don't know how that happened. Okay. So anyway, fundamentally, folks, that is how you do that. And then, of course, you can do sneaky little crossfades. You can cut the pause out. You can zoom in and do all that stuff here. At the moment, they're all kind of set as you can see right there. But yeah, that's essentially how you do it. And then you can just go and retitle everything. And then you can save the project, and you are good to go. So there you go. It was just a really short thing, and I thought, hey, somebody asked this question, and I could make a video about this, but hey, it'd be far more fun if I actually did this in the show instead. So I hope you guys found that useful and helpful. And I'm going to go back over to the lounge kind of screenshot thing. I don't want to call it the lounge. I want to call it something else. I don't know what I want to call it, but all right, let's go see what you guys have been talking about. Let's see. Lollipop Gill says, audiobooks, that would be a gig to have. How does one get into doing audiobooks? I kind of fell into it by accident, mostly because I do on the side, because you have to, in this business, you have to diversify your revenue and all of that. Otherwise, if you just literally, I am strictly only a session musician, or I'm strictly only a mix engineer, you know what? You're not going to make enough money to put food on the table, keep a roof over your head, and feed your family. Just not going to happen. You have to have your fingers in a lot of different pies. I know Dave Vignola over at Home Recording Made Easy, he has his fingers in several pies. He doesn't just do mixing. He doesn't just make tutorials. He writes music for film and TV. You know, he does TV theme tunes, and he does incidental music for TV shows as well. And he earns royalties from doing that, as well as fees. So he has his fee that he agrees, and then he gets royalties on top of that as well, which is great for him. So he has a whole bunch of different revenue sources. So one of mine is that I do a little bit of continuity announcing on the side. So I do a little bit of announcing for a couple of radio stations here in Scotland. And I kind of fell into that kind of by accident. It's just a case of I knew somebody that was doing it, and I was just like, I could do that. I've got a microphone. I've got an audio set up at home. Why don't I do that as well? You know, and he told me what he was being paid per session or per track. I thought, that's good. I could do that. I could knock out 10, 15 tracks a day. Easy. And he knocks out loads. He does like 30 a day. I'm not quite that good. But yeah, so I do a little bit of that on the side, and I kind of fell into that. And then he actually hired me to record and mix and master an audiobook that he was doing for an author whose name I can't mention. So he came in here. We set this mic up and in the middle of the room, and we put he does it with a teleprompter, and we put the teleprompter up in front of his microphone and off, and we hit record, and off he went. And he would read until he made a mistake, and we would mark that on the track, and then we'd go back and we'd edit all those things out later. But then when it came to mixing, we would mix it, process it, and put in any incidental music that was required for the audiobook, those kind of things, bits of narration, character voices, and that kind of stuff had to go in as well. Once all of those were in, I would mix that, and then I would master it in the project page. And of course, I wanted to, in the project page, have the whole thing chaptered. So that meant I would have to chop this whole thing. I mean, it'd be like a 90-minute, 2-hour session, and we'd chop it up into however long each chapter was. And it worked out really, really well. And, you can crossfade if need be. You can increase the pause time, because oftentimes with audiobooks, the pause time is more like 3 seconds, 3 to 4 seconds between chapters, rather than the standard 2 seconds for Redbook for music. So that's quite a good, fun thing to do. Michael Johnson says, audiobooks have a lot more to do with cleaning up and leveling different vocal takes together. Noise reduction when needed. They usually provide the backing music when needed. Yes, they quite often do. Most of the time, they just send me the files, and I just bring in the audio tracks and the music bed and some of the Foley effects that are required at different points as well. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Mika says, can you demo crossfading and how to place and move indexing markers in the right place in a crossfade? I can certainly try. Michael says, I fell into audiobook gigs also. Friends of friends knew I had a home studio and it just happened. Yeah, that's kind of how I kind of fell into it as well. All right, let me go back to the projecty page. And let's go back over here. So now we're on the project page, and all the tracks are already marked out, as you can see, and you can change the colors of all of these. At the moment, it's kind of all one color because, well, similar colors. These ones are similar colors. I don't know why. But I can change this one. I can make this one that color if I want. I can make this one. Let's see. Let's make this one that color. I don't really care what color I'm making these at the moment. I'm just wanting to make them different. All right, so you can have them each colored. But let's say, let me think about this for a second. What I'm trying to work out is where my little pause is, because I've chopped it up the way I have. So you can move this little marker here wherever you want to. And let's say you want to crossfade. So I can move this back. Except because this is like one chopped up event, it's not letting me do that. but yeah, you can certainly fade that and fade that. But yeah, you can actually drag it as well rather than doing it the way I was doing it. So if I wanted to crossfade, let's say this word into this word here, or that sentence into that sentence. Now, obviously, I can't play these. This is the problem you're going to have. You're not going to be able to hear any of this audio because I'm not allowed to play it. But that's definitely certainly one way in which you can do it. So track 2 or track 7, I think that is. I've moved the starting point for that. But it should just crossfade over from track 6 into track 7 without any issue. And as I say, I can't play this, so you're not going to be able to hear this. But it should just cross over and fade out one into the other. But the actual marker point for the track, for track 7, is there. And you can do that with all of these if you wanted to. So, you know, if I wanted to bring this one and have this fade in and that fade out, again, same deal. And the other one takes over. So you can kind of do those things, and it works pretty well. So I hope that helps, Mika. Let's go and see what you guys are saying. Okay, you guys are not saying a whole lot. Much like Bias Pro, this is yeah, kind of. Yeah. Project page has been kind of updated and upgraded a little bit in the last couple of Studio One updates. I suspect that there is more to come for the project page because they haven't done a whole lot. They've just kind of tinkered a little bit around the edges of it. They haven't really made any major updates to the project page since probably Studio One's 3.5. That's probably the last time there were any major updates. In fact, that is when the project page was last subject to a major update, which is cool. It's been a while, though. I mean, that was 2016. So, yeah, about 4 years, and not a whole lot of love for the project page. So I'm hoping that in future major versions that there will be some more stuff coming for the project page, because the project page is awesome, and it's one of the USPs, unique selling points, of Studio One, that it has this glorious, fully integrated mastering suite. It's, you know, it's high time that was kind of talked about a wee bit more. So I hope that the guys do that, to be honest. Let's see. Lollipop Guild says, oh, talking to Michael Johnson. Okay, I will not read that. I'll let you guys talk. Can I show how to put effects on the master inserts versus the individual parts? Yes, can do that. Ken asks, do you use OBS for your regular videos, or is it only for live stream? Interested in making some videos myself, but not in live streaming. I actually do a little bit of both. Oh, it's fine, Lollipop Guild. This is a community. This is a place for hanging out. Now, you know, for as much as Jonny likes to call this the classroom and all of that, I don't really go for that much. But yeah, I'm fine with you guys chatting. But one thing you are learning from Jonny is putting the @JonnyLipsham box, which is great. That works really well for me as much as it does for him as well, because I can spot the questions and kind of ignore the background chatter and just let you guys talk, which is fine. I don't mind you doing that. So, getting back to Ken's question, I actually do a bit of both. Some videos I make with OBS, like the splitter videos that I've just done recently, I've used OBS. But I also use Camtasia as well. Camtasia is very, very cool. It's very powerful. It not only does screen recording, but it has some very powerful editing tools as well. It's well worth investing in. It's not that expensive, and it comes very, very feature rich. There's a whole bunch of very, very cool visual effects, audio effects. Like they have, there's a compressor, there's a limiter, and there's a noise suppressor in there, which is very cool. So if your mic has maybe a tiny little bit of room noise or a tiny bit of hiss, then the noise suppressor in Camtasia can remove that very helpfully. The cool thing with OBS, and here's the difference between OBS and Camtasia. Camtasia far more expensive because it actually costs money. OBS doesn't cost a cent. It's totally free. But here's the big difference, and here's where I think for people like Jonny Gibe, OBS is a big deal. And that's this. With Camtasia, the only audio it captures is your WDM channels 1 and 2. It doesn't capture anything else, which is why on a Windows system, using Camtasia to do screen capture recordings using a DAW is a pain in the butt. Because ASIO takes over WDM 1 and 2. So if you try and make a video using Camtasia just using a single interface, you're going to run into problems because your mic is not going to be heard, or Studio One is not going to be heard, and only your mic is going to be heard. That's probably the most likely way round, that you will be able to hear Studio One in your headphones, but it will not be being picked up by Camtasia. There is a workaround. And I think Johnny's talked about this before, and you can certainly use something like the PreSonus monitor station to basically have your outputs going out from your interface into the monitor station, and then have a set of outputs that go to your speakers. And of course, you can use the headphone amps on the monitor station as well. And then you use the Q outputs, which are stereo, and you run cables out of that into a second interface. And then you set Camtasia to listen to that second interface, not your main one. And effectively, you're summing your main interface to a second interface, and that means your mic goes with it, because it will take the WDM channels and Studio One and sum them into the second interface, and everything is balanced together there. So you can do it that way. The other way you can do videos is if you have a PreSonus interface, in particular, one of the studio interfaces, the Studio Series interfaces, like the 2.4, the 6.8, the 18.10, the 18.24, they all have a function on it called loopback. Loopback is awesome. That is what I'm using at the moment, because my second interface that I have used for 5-6 years does not work on Windows 10. They discontinued the product not long after I bought it, and I never knew. And so there is no Windows 10 driver for it. And although I spoke to the company that make that second interface, and they said, hey, it's class compliant, it should just work. Well, it doesn't. Basically, the audio comes out slow sounding, which is weird, but that's just the way that does it. So that interface is sat in the cupboard behind me. And I'm not using that anymore. I'm using the 1824 in loopback mode, and that's what you're hearing right now. You've not heard Studio One and my mic yet, but we can do that towards the back end of the show. We can show you that. And that is how I make my videos. I can use OBS to do it, because here's the difference. I'm getting to it. Honestly, really, I'm getting to it. OBS, it's freeware, but it captures more than the WDM channels. I think it can capture like 8 channels of audio, which is amazing for a free piece of software. And so you can set it up to do that. So the way I have it set up at the moment is I have this mic on channel 1, and I have system and every other audio that goes through my interface on channels 3 and 4. And my piano is on channel 2. So 1 and 2 are the this mic and this guy, and then Studio 1 is going out of 3 and 4. And all of that gets summed back in via the virtual inputs. Not real inputs, but virtual inputs in Universal Control, and OBS is listening to the virtual inputs. And that's how it works. Works really well. And it means that I can do everything using just the one interface now instead of 2. Michael says Azure for All might help with Camtasia. It might. The issue that you have with Azure for All, and I know this because I used Azure for All with Camtasia, with Cubase a long time ago. And the latency is horrendous. It's really, really bad. And of course, the actual GUI for Azure for All sucks as well. It's awful. It's just far too clunky. But so that's why I never recommend Azure for All. But I do understand that you can do some virtual routing in Azure for All, kind of in a kind of loopback scenario. And of course, there's other pieces of software, like there's a voice meter. You can use that as well. Or Audio Jack is another one. I think Joe uses that one, which is a cool piece of software that does effectively the same thing. All right, so let's go back to Michael Johnson's question about how you put effects on the master inserts versus the individual parts. Okay, let's go and do that. So let's go do that. So let's go back over to Studio One. And as you can see, these are the individual tracks here. So let's just shrink it down so we can see them all. And so when I select the first song here, the insert bay here is specific to only this song. Okay? Only specific to this song. So if I was to put the MJUC in there and compress it a little bit and have a little bit of makeup gain and set the timing to whatever, when I then go on to the next song, notice that the MJUC disappears. But let's say we decide to use the DC1A3, which is another cool Klanghelm compressor. And the cool thing about this is it's just got an input and an output. And you can use it in dual mono. You can have it so that it allows the lows to pass through, or you can have it in this relaxed mode. Not really sure what that does. Or there's this negative mode as well, again, which I've not really explored, but it's a great little compressor. I use this for parallel processing a fair amount. And so when I click on the next song, that one's gone as well. All right, well, let's have to, I'm just pulling out plugins for the sake of pulling out plugins here. And then, of course, we can do whatever we want with this one. And then the next one, whatever. All right. Now, on the master inserts, let's say we want to use, what do we want to use? We want to use the fat channel on the master inserts. And we want to go to the compressor, and we want to go, let's say, to the Britcomp, which is kind of an SSL style bus compressor. And let's say we are happy with all those settings. We turn that on. And then let's say I go back to the first song. Now notice the MJUC has reappeared, but the fat channel has stayed. That's because this insert bay is master. So it's like the master fader in the song page. All of these plugins here are applied to all of these songs here. So the signal flow goes from the song through the inserts for that particular song into the global master inserts, pre-fader, and then into the post-fader section as well. So maybe, just maybe, you might chuck the limiter on the post here and have that set up how you want it. So maybe I just set the ceiling of threshold to -1 because that's going to avoid intersample peaking and all of that business. So clicking on any of these songs, these two remain the same. So now anything that is on song 5, there isn't anything at the moment, but if there were like EQs and maybe a multi-band compressor or a stereo widener or whatever, the signal would go from the song into the insert bay, through those inserts, then into the master, and then out through the post fader plugins. And that's how that works. So these guys are global. If you put any plugins on the master inserts or the master post fader section, it's going to affect all of the songs in your mastering session. Any plugins you put in here are only going to affect this particular song. So this particular song is going through the MJUC, then into the fat channel and the limiter. The second song is going into the DC1A3, the fat channel and the limiter. So these guys are global, these are individual. So I hope that that answers that question. It was a very good one, actually. Why is track 2 missing the timeline? Let's make that go away. Why is track 2 missing in the timeline but showing up in the track list? I don't know. I've probably done something slightly wrong with that particular song, but it's by the by. It doesn't actually matter. It's not a big deal. Not anything to worry about. But it will work that all the songs will show in sequence and everything will work out just fine. And you'll get track 2 and everything else there. So all of that will work out well. Not to worry. But yeah, good question. Let's go back up. Michael Johnson says, anyone else attempted the 2-chord 32-bar challenge? It was a very good challenge that I set. I kind of set it open-ended. I did not give anybody a deadline for it. So if you still want to do it, go ahead and do it. And basically it's 2 chords, minor chords. You're only allowed to use 2 minor chords. And for that, each of those chords, so let's say you pick C minor, you can only use either the notes of the C minor chord or the first 5 notes of that particular scale to make your melody. Okay, so you can either go or and use those notes. And then the next chord, maybe you've chosen F minor. Doesn't have to be. Could be any. Doesn't have to be chord 4. It could be you've gone for C minor and A flat minor. In which case, okay. So those was the rules, and it had to be 32 bar AABA form, basically. Any style, any tempo, any time signature, but those were the restrictions that you had to be creative with. So let's see. Francis is here. He says, what was the second thing you mentioned after OBS? I think you said universal control. Yes, I mentioned loopback, which you set up in universal control. And loopback works on only certain PreSonus interfaces and some third-party interfaces, but certainly on the Studio series of interfaces. If you have one of those, you should be able to get loopback working. But you'll need to create the virtual inputs in Studio One in your inputs section of your I/O routing in order for that to work so that Studio One is picked up by your screen capture software, be that OBS or be that Camtasia, whichever it is. So yeah, once you've done the loopback thing, you then have to go and connect up the virtual ins and outs. I had the help of Don Barnes to set that all up because I wasn't entirely 100% sure how to set it up. And Don walked me through it because he uses that for making his videos and his training products for all of the voiceover coaching work that he does. So I recommend reaching out to him. He's a busy guy, but if he's got some spare time to help you set it up, he will do it because he's a very, very, very generous guy. So there you go with that. I think I saw Dusty Attic Studio here, I think. I may have gone past where it is. Yes, Dusty Attic Studio. Keith is here. Hello, buddy. Good to see you. Sorry, smack the mic. Welcome to the show. He asks, how did the Studio One meetup go? The Studio One meetup was thwarted big time by Storm Dennis. And I think I talked about that last week. So you can go and watch the replay of that. But in a nutshell, essentially Storm Dennis meant that I got absolutely soaked through to the skin going to the meetup venue, which is Starbucks at Fountain Park in Edinburgh. And of the 8, I think it was 8 or 10 people that had bought free tickets, that had got their free tickets and were going to attend because of the weather. They couldn't make it into town because they came from outlying suburbs of Edinburgh. They couldn't make it in. So I only had one person show up. But it was great. His name is Philip. He's from Poland. He's a great guy. He lives in town. I'm going to be going to meet up with him. Not a studio meet up, just to meet up to chat and get to know him better and see how best I can serve him and his needs with Studio One, because he's a recent convert from Ableton Live and Reason. He used to use both of those, and now he's just using Studio One. He's only been using Studio One for a few weeks. So it's great to talk to him and talk to him about what he loves about Studio One and the kind of things he would like to see coming from his Ableton and Reason background. So very, very cool guy. Great to talk with him. And we actually filled the 2 hours, just the two of us, which was fantastic. Now, I am hoping to do another one. To basically rerun that meetup, and hopefully I will get those other 8 who had tickets to come again. And I've got plans to do more meetups across Scotland. So I'm going to be going to Glasgow, going to be going to Aberdeen, going to be going to Inverness, and Stirling is on my hit list as well. So that's going to be cool, doing a few different meetups and basically just moving the venues around for Scotland Studio One meetups. So there you go. And he says 1 is better than 0. Pretty good considering the storm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, by the time I'd finished the meetup and, and all of that, and I had dried out sufficiently, I went back out into the rain and got absolutely soaked to the skin again. It was great. But you know what? It was so worth it. Just to meet this one guy actually was so worth it. He was such a nice guy and so easy to talk to. And I learned a lot about how he uses Studio One and got a lot of information, which I'm still kind of processing and working through so that I can figure out how best I can serve him, which is going to be great. And then hopefully looking forward to doing the same for the other guys when I get them as well. So when I get them to come along as well. So Studio One folks across Scotland are spread pretty thin. I mean, there's only like 5 million people in the whole of Scotland because, a lot of Scotland is made up of mountains and that kind of thing. So there's large sections of Scotland where there are no people. So, it would be extremely cool to be able to just do the rounds around the major cities and just kind of meet Studio One users where they are rather than have them come to me. So yeah, that's going to be cool. Let's see. Old School Funk and Soul is here. He says, which interface of yours, Johnny, doesn't work in Windows 10? It is the Alesis IO2. It's quite an elderly device. And you know what, to be honest, when I had it set up in Windows 7 and it worked, I just kind of set it and forget it. And, you know, I didn't bother about it. So, I kind of assumed it would still work in Windows 10. Hadn't thought about the fact that not long after I bought it, Alesis discontinued the product and actually stopped making it altogether and stopped supporting it, which meant there was no Windows 10 driver for it. But yeah, Alesis said to me, hey, it actually probably doesn't matter that there's no specific Alesis Windows 10 driver for it. They said it's class compliant. It should just work as a class compliant audio device, but it doesn't. I mean, it's not like you don't hear the audio. You do. It just sounds like it's slow. And it's not anything to do with a sample mismatch, a sample rate mismatch, because I've checked. I checked that both are running at 44.1 for Windows. So you know, kind of that. That was work. You know, that should have indicated that it should have worked, but didn't. Bobby's booth is here. He says the meetup sounds great, but when no car, can't make none of them. Yeah. Bobby, I suggest maybe, you know, if you can actually get into your nearest town, maybe by bus or something, because that's what I did. I mean, I live on the outskirts of Edinburgh. I don't even live in the centre of town. I live on the outskirts of Edinburgh, so I had to make a 35-minute bus ride into town. So if you can get into the nearest town by public transport, just pick a venue from there. That's what I did with mine. I just went Starbucks, Fountain Park, central to Edinburgh, and also it's one of those Starbucks that is actually in a cinema complex, so it's gonna be open late, and that's why I picked it, because I thought, hey, we can do a meetup there that runs in the evening when people are home from work and are able to get out on an evening out. So I could have done a pub or I could have done a restaurant or something like that, but I thought Starbucks was you know, a less kind of pressured environment. Nobody's, you know, you're not having to compete with lots of loud chatter and all of that. Because Starbucks are kind of a cool, kind of quiet little place. You know, there's nice low-level hubbub and chatter. Whereas in a pub, it gets a bit noisy. Restaurants, yeah, it can also get a little bit noisy. But also with restaurants, you probably have to book tables in advance. Whereas, you know, probably, you know, somewhere like Starbucks is good because you don't have to book tables, and it means there's no pressure on you to kind of make a big deal of it with the venue, and then, you know, there's less pressure on you organizationally. Let's see, I'm missing a few posts here. Not intentionally, but I am missing those. Let's see. Mika says, product page, can you mix sample rates? What about converting from 24-bit, 44.1, 16-bit dithering? Yeah, you probably can. I don't actually know because I've not done that, but pretty much in Studio One, dithering can be done as an automatic process that you don't have to worry about. What else am I missing? I need to go and look. Keith says, if you ever decide to make a trip to Presonus, you have a free place to stay. Well, that's awesome. Thank you, Keith. I appreciate that very much. Yes, trip to Presonus may well be happening. Don't know when, but quite possibly happening. So I know I am even possibly going to be going over to the software guys over in Hamburg at some point as well. So that's going to be pretty cool if that actually happens. Francis Dino, my brand new attendee, He says, I will be in Edinburgh June 19th on a Viking tour ship. Wow. Wow, awesome. He says, since you live in the outskirts, I guess meeting for a brew is not going to happen. Who said that's not going to happen? I went into the centre of town in the middle of Storm Dennis to meet up with one guy. I'm pretty sure in June we're hopefully not going to have another storm, either with a male or female name. Yeah, even if we do, is that going to stop me? No. If you're going to be in town, if I can be in town, I'll be there. Absolutely. June 19th, I will check. I will check and I will see if I'm available on June 19th. It kind of depends on a few factors, but I will see if I'm available, and if I am, I will definitely meet you in town, Francis, for a brew. That would be great. Do you know the difference between VST2 and VST3? I know that VST3 is faster. It's able to process more data. But other than that, I'm not sure of all of the details of the differences between VST2 and VST3. Other than kind of some of the basics. That's about all I know. Mika might be able to help out a little bit more with that one. Bobby says he has no bus or taxi service. What? Where do you stay, Bobby? Are you like way out in the countryside or something? Like out in the sticks is what we'd call it here in Scotland. Are you like way out in the countryside? I'm a country boy. You know, I grew up in the country. I grew up where like you'd be lucky if you get one bus that comes through per day, and if you miss that, you're not going into town. Yeah, I lived in a place quite like that, and taxis, you can get them, but because it's, you know, a little bit more of a trek, it can be quite expensive. It can be like £30-40 to get into town in a taxi. So I totally understand. Let's see. Mika says I'd rather Hamburg than Louisiana any day. Yeah, I kind of see where you're coming from there. Just Bob's got to go for dinner. Good to see you, mate. Thanks for coming. VST3 is more CPU friendly, says Ken. Yes, it most certainly is. Lowen says, I did some tracks on the MPC and export the stems to mix in Studio One. Is it okay to use a -3 limiter coming out of the MPC before I mix? I don't see why not. If it kind of gets the audio level down to an appropriate level for mixing, then yeah, do whatever you need to do. You know, gain staging isn't exclusive just to audio tracks. You can use it on instrument tracks as well, or, you know, any other device that you've got connected that works that way. So Bobby says country. Okay, yeah, so you're out in the country as well. Keith says no bus here in my part of Louisiana either, Bobby. You have Uber. Okay. David says the biggest advantage to VST3 is that they go dormant when there's nothing on a track to process, saving CPU resources. VST2 plugins stay active. Yes, yes, that's a big one. I remember that now. I remember that one. Mika says VST 2.4 plugins used to have a fixed number of inputs and outputs, but that's no longer the case. VST 3 plugins have the potential to adapt to the channel configuration in which they're inserted. Of course, yes. That's great to know. That's really good info, and some of that I did actually know, but I'd kind of forgotten, kind of gone out of my mind. Francis says, I have so many VST2s that I'm concerned about the changes. I hope they keep them in play for a while. Here's the thing. A lot of plugin manufacturers now have VST3 versions of those plugins. So it's worth investigating. It's worth going back to your plugin manufacturers and seeing if there is an update that gives you VST3 versions of those plugins. That, to be honest, that's what I did with a lot of my Waves plugins. I have had Waves plugins for decades, and I have had to update a lot of them to VST3 as well. I had to get the VST3 versions of those as well. Keith says, boat is the best means of transport here. Yeah, Louisiana is it can be quite wet, especially when it floods. It's as far as I recall, it's a floodplain region, which is never a great place to build a town. Really isn't. We do that here in the UK as well. We will build a town on a floodplain, and then when we get a lot of rain and the rivers burst their banks and you get flooding, everyone goes, "Oh, flooding! Oh no, what do we do?" And it's just like, your city is built on a floodplain. Floodplains are designed to flood when the river bursts its bank. The town planner really should be shot for doing such a stupid thing. But on the other hand, quite often, certainly here in the UK, the towns were kind of started as little wee stone and mud huts way back in the Bronze Age. And so, they didn't know any of that stuff. They just thought, hey, this is a nice area, and there is nice, clean water nearby. Perfect. Let's build our little houses here and settle there. And so that's what they did. And then those little hamlets grew into villages, then the villages grew into towns, and then the towns grew into cities. And before you know it, the whole floodplain is concreted over, and everyone thinks it won't flood because it's concreted over. Wrong. Keith says, our home is now in a flood zone, which means it's only 12 feet above sea level. See? Who had the crazy idea that would be a really great place to build a house? I'll never understand it. I really won't. Tell you what, though, insurance companies are probably going, oh, you're going to live in that house that's on the floodplain. Rubbing their hands together with glee because they may have them, they can charge you a lot in insurance premiums and all of that. And of course, then they'll say, we'll put in a flood waiver in your insurance contract, which means if your house gets damaged by flood, sorry, we can't insure. You were daft enough to buy the house that's on the flood area. Yes. There you go. Anyway, I did kind of say a long time ago that I would not get involved in politics on my channel, so I'm not going to do it. Anyway, I've been talking a lot, and it's 1:10, and I have not touched my tea at all. It is now lukewarm tea. But it's fluid. I'll take it. Okay. Bobby says maybe I'll check and see what it would take for me to have a meetup. Best thing to do is just pick a venue. The Studio One meetups thing is not actually that complicated. Essentially, all you need to do is put something out there on Facebook or wherever you know that a lot of people that you know in your area are likely to kind of see, and put something out there saying, hey, Studio One users in my area, would you be interested in a meetup? And then kind of see what they say. And if you get a good response and you have like a few people going, yeah, we'd be definitely up for that, then you can go, right, phase 2. Phase 2 is you find a venue. And I would keep it really simple. Keep it really simple to a venue where you don't really have to put any pressure on the venue themselves or yourself. So you don't have to book tables or anything like that, or you don't have to hire a space in their venue that you then have to pay for, and then, if nobody turns up, you end up out of pocket. You don't want that. You want to make it budget zero. Okay, the Studio One meetups are meant to be budget zero as much as possible. Once you got your venue, pick a date and a time. And then the next thing to do when you've got your date, your time, and your venue is send an email to S1 Meetups. That's all one word, S1 Meetups at presonus.com. And with those details, and then they will send you an email back, and you'll go from there, and they will take care of all of the advertising for it, and they'll create an Eventbrite page for it and everything else. That's what they did for mine. That's what they did for Joe's and everybody else. It's not exclusively just to kind of us kind of people. Anybody can host one. Anybody can host a Studio One meetup. And they're just meant to be really casual. And it is just a way to do a little bit of info gathering as well by Presonus. So, you can kind of find out the kind of things that in your meetup that the people in your meetup they like about Studio One. You can collate that kind of information, and then maybe things that they would like to see. Kind of those kind of two pieces of information are kind of really what Presonus are after. So definitely think about it, because I think Bobby, you would be a great host for such a thing. And then the idea is, maybe if the first one works really well, organize another one, like a short period after, maybe 5-6 weeks after, and then just try and grow it organically into something that is a regular event. That's what I'm going to be doing. And as I said, early on in my show, my intent, because of the unique kind of Studio One demographics in Scotland, is I'm going to be moving mine around to try and meet Studio One users where they are, rather than having everybody come down to Edinburgh. I know the UK looks small on a map, but trust me, it's not as small as you think, because the difference between Edinburgh and Aberdeen is about 6 hours. So, or if I was going to go a little bit further north and that would be like 8-9 hours drive. So, or on the train, or I could fly to Aberdeen if I really wanted to. Or, when I do my meetup in Glasgow, that's, it's like a good 55 miles from Edinburgh to Glasgow. So I would either go there on the train or I'd take a bus. It's fine. It is what it is. And it just means that I can meet people in Glasgow rather than folk from Glasgow and Aberdeen and everywhere else coming down to me and having to, spend a lot of time and a lot of money on petrol and stuff like that. I think it feels much better for me, feels much better for my conscience as well, to kind of put the onus on me rather than on them. So there you go. That's what I think. Mika says, greed is why floodplains are developed just like Florida's swampland. No, maybe. You may be right. But no politics. I know I kind of started it, but I'm stopping it. Mika says, if I were to participate in a meetup, there would be computers, interfaces, speakers, live tutorials, demos, hands-on Q&A, all related to Studio One. Why get together just to drink a beverage? Because, Mika, the idea of the Studio One meetups is they are meant to be casual and not formal, like what you're talking about. I understand totally where you're coming from, because I have had that discussion as well. But that's not the function and the design of the Studio One meetups. The idea of the Studio One meetups is that Studio One users get to meet together and get to know each other and get to share how they use Studio One. What's your workflow? What's your workflow? How, and just go around and compare how we each use Studio One and talk together and come up with, hey, we would like to see this. We would like to see that. We would like to see this. Feature in the future, or these are the things that we really love. These are the things that we find are a bit of a headache. Those kind of things. They're all about that. It's all meant. The Studio One meetups are meant to be casual. They're not meant to be a formal, educational, platform where you do tutorials and have gear and everything else like that. That's not what they're designed for. That's not the idea behind them. There will be, I'm sure, other events where they are meant to be those kind of events. And, I'm sure I will run such events in the future. But, that's not what the Studio One meetups are all about. The Studio One meetups are all about helping to build the Studio One community and getting people that know each other well online, if it's possible, and they maybe see each other in the Facebook groups, or they see each other in on the Personas forum. Get those kind of people meeting together face to face, because face to face is a better way of meeting people than just online, to be honest. So that's kind of the idea behind those, Mika. They're not meant to be kind of formal training sessions. They're meant to be casual. And that's the idea. And hopefully, maybe, if your meetups are popular and well attended, and you start building something, a nice little community where people know each other well and they are happy to meet regularly, and you maybe have, I don't know, 3 or 4 meetings down the line, 5 meetings down the line, who knows? However long it takes for you to build something cool through these meetups, then perhaps you can start to formalize it into formalized training sessions. And that's the idea. And as Ken says here, in education we have ed camps. I've driven 2 states away to attend some on a Saturday. They are fantastic, and it is not planned presentations. Exactly. They're just a chance to meet other people. And it's just a chance to share ideas and share how you work. So, and Ken says, I'm hoping these Personas meetups become as popular as ed camps. Absolutely. I think they're a great idea. I really do. And, I think they're a great chance for other Studio One users to get to know other Studio One users and talk about how they use Studio One, what they love about it, what they find is a headache. And you might find that there are common threads. Maybe your particular group of users will say, hey, we all have the same thing that we think's a headache here. And then you can go, okay, there's an appetite for this particular thing to be changed. That's information that can be passed on to Personas. And then Personas will go, that group of people, and that group of people, and that group of people have all said the same thing about this particular thing. We should change it. And that's how it works. So out of something casual, you get formal data going back to Personas, and then they crunch all of that data, and that gets fired into development. And that's how these things work. Mika says, so far S1 meetups are sausage parties. No, I completely disagree. I understand your cynicism. At first, I thought that might be the way they go, but no. I think they're a great idea. And they work actually really well. So, yeah. And as you rightly just said, right there, Mika. Music department students have logic meetups where attendees are a mixed bag of demographics. Yep, and you get that at Studio One meetups. You get some folks that are well versed in it. You get some folks that have just switched over to it. And that's fine. That's how it should be. And Keith says, we need another Personasphere. Yes, those Personasphere events were fantastic. 2010 to 2013? I think they kind of stopped after 2013, which is a bit of a shame. They were the brainchild of our dearly departed, very, very good friend, Mr. Skip Jones. His idea. And he pitched it to the Personas management, and Personas management went, that's a great idea. And so there we go. Anyway, I have not been keeping an eye on the time. We've been running for an extra 20 minutes. So you guys have got an extra, it's been a show and almost a half. You lucky people. All right, so we are going to call it a night there. But I just want to say thank you very much to all of you for coming. You guys, as usual, have been outstanding. Your questions have been awesome. And I appreciate it all very, very much. And I hope some of you will come away from this and think, yes, I absolutely want to go and get a Studio One meetup going. If that's what you're thinking, do it. Just do it. Don't hang around. Just go and do it. put some feelers out, find out if people are up for it. If they are, move through the phases until you're ready to send that email to s1meetups@presonus.com, and then Presonus will take care of the rest. I guarantee it. All right, folks. So on that point, I'm going to say a very good night. It's 1:20 in the morning here, and I have a very, very early start with my kids. So until Wednesday, when I will be on my own, because Jonny is on vacation for Songwriting Simplified. So I will definitely do a solo show. Otherwise, I will see you then. Good night, everybody. Oh, I need to press that button, don't I? Good night. Good night, everybody.